the gap, standing for Jesus. Standing in the gap for family and friends. Standing in the gap, one love for all, so we all can make it in.
What we found out over the years that we're doing this is that people need to understand that God put us in this world to be, because He loves the world so much, and you know that verse. And if He put us in there, He didn't want us to just go to the side and let everything else happen in the world. That's not the way it is. We need to know what's going on in the world so we can evangelize, so we can spread the word of God where it needs to go. And to do that, you have to know what's going on in this world right now at this time, current events. And what we found out is that there are plenty current events that you need to stay on top of. And especially in this cycle we're in right now. Marble is in charge of Gap News, and she always has a whole bunch of things she can bring to your attention. And she does her best to find the best things to bring and to put it in the best context for you. So I'm going to turn this over to her. She's got something Gap News for you. I think you enjoy. Marble?
Yeah, we got some good Gap News, y'all. So, over the course of the last month or so, there's been so much excitement. We'll call it that. It's excitement. Excitement in the Republican Party. They had the Republican National Convention. And then after the National Convention, Joe Biden stepped down from being considered as a candidate, and Kamala Harris jumped in there. And a few weeks ago, I guess maybe 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Kamala phenomenon. It was a fantastic phenomenon that nobody would have expected it, but that's what happened. She took off like hot fire. This week we had the Democratic National Convention. And so what I have done is to I call it the Tale of Two Conventions. Let's see what happened in one and what happened in the other, and kind of get a feel for how each of these political parties sees America and sees the world.
We want to remind all our delegates, our alternates and guests, that maintaining order during the roll call is extremely important.
It is our honor to cast 31 votes for our next president, Donald J. Trump.
If the convention is not in order, it's difficult for the secretary or presiding officer to hear the vote announcement.
Georgia, how do you cast your vote?
Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight to officially nominate Kamala Harris for president. Five, get loud, another round of shots. DNC, turn out for what?
In the spirit of good trouble, Georgia cast 123 votes for the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Wyoming, the cowboy state, is Trump country. We've supplied the highest margin of victory for President Trump in both 2016 and 2020. And with that, Wyoming, the cowboy state, casts all of its 29 delegates for President Donald J. Trump.
We are honored to be representing the great state of Wyoming. Both the first state and territory in this nation to recognize a woman's right to vote, and the state that 100 years ago elected Democrat Nellie Taylor Ross, our nation's first female governor. With that legacy in mind and heart, the Equality State cast all of our votes for the woman who will be the first woman president of the United States. Say it with me now, Kamala Harris!
That that there's a lot of free publicity out there to be had.
Listen, when my days are through, America, I gave my best to you.
Joe, thank you for your historic leadership.
In the words of the great Steph Curry, we can tell Donald Trump, night, night.
Who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs?
There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
We're all Americans, and together, let's all choose Kamala Harris.
Hope, Gus, and Gwen, you are my entire world, and I love you.
I wasn't just a Trump supporter. I was a true believer. I was one of his closest advisors. The Trump family became my family. I spent Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's all at Mar-a-Lago. I saw him when the cameras were off. Behind closed doors, Trump mocks his supporters. He calls them basement dwellers. On a hospital visit one time when people were dying in the ICU, he was mad that the cameras were not watching him. He has no empathy, no morals, and no fidelity to the truth. And that's because I love my country more than my party. Kamala Harris tells the truth. She respects the American people, and she has my vote.
Let me tell you about the Kamala Harris I know. She is legitimately a joyful, optimistic leader. She cares about policy, yes, but she also cares about people.
I have a confession to make. I'm a lifelong Republican. So I feel a little out of place tonight, but I feel more at home here than in today's Republican Party. The grand old party has been kidnapped by extremists and devolved into a cult. The cult of Donald Trump. Trump doesn't know the first thing about public service. Like a child, he acts purely out of self-interest. So let's turn the page. Let's put country first. Let's put adults in the room where our country deserves. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. I bring greetings from the great state of Georgia. So let's get the hard part out of the way. I am a Republican. But tonight, I stand here as an American. An American that cares more about the future of this country than the future of Donald Trump. My journey started to this podium years ago when I realized Donald Trump was willing to lie, cheat, and steal to try to overturn the 2020 election. I realized Trump was a direct threat to democracy, and his actions disqualified him from ever stepping foot into the Oval Office again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm Adam Kinzinger, and I am proud to be in the trenches with you as part of this sometimes awkward alliance that we have to defend truth, defend democracy, and decency. I was just a kid when I was drawn to the party of Ronald Reagan, to his vision of a strong America, the shining city on a hill. I was a Republican for 12 years in Congress, and I still hold on to the label. I never thought I'd be here, but listen, you never thought you'd see me here, did you? But I've learned something about the Democratic Party, and I want to let my fellow Republicans in on the secret. The Democrats are as patriotic as us. They love this country just as much as we do. And they are as eager to defend American values at home and abroad as we conservatives have ever been. To my fellow Republicans, if you still pledge allegiance to those principles, I suspect you belong here too. Because democracy knows no party. It's a living, breathing ideal that defines us as a nation. It's the bedrock that separates us from tyranny, and when that foundation is fractured, we must all stand together, united, to strengthen it. If you think those principles are worth defending, then I urge you, make the right choice. Vote for our bedrock values and vote for Kamala Harris
of the United States.
I see an America where we hold fast to the fearless belief that built our nation.
We are indeed a nation in decline.
It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done, guided by optimism.
It's a massive invasion at our southern border that has spread misery, crime, poverty, disease, and destruction.
I will be a president who unites us.
Crazy Nancy Pelosi.
Who is realistic.
The biggest rallies you've ever seen.
Practical.
Build an iron dome over our country.
And has common sense.
The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He'd love to have you for dinner.
And I will fulfill our sacred obligation to care for our troops and their families.
The head of the Taliban, you call me Your Excellency. I wonder if he calls the other guy Your Excellency. I doubt it.
I will always honor and never disparage their service.
Our military is not woke. It's just some of the fools on top that are woke.
I will not cozy up to tyrants and dictators like Kim Jong-un.
North Korea, Kim Jong-un, I got along very well with him.
Donald Trump, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans.
We will return law and order to our streets.
Separately found liable for committing sexual abuse.
We will launch a new era of safety.
You can always trust me to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections to the peaceful transfer of power.
We had that horrible, horrible result that we'll never let happen again. The election result, we're never going to let that happen again. They used COVID to cheat. We're never going to let it happen again.
At Trump's Republican National Convention, the main star power was Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock. At this week's Democratic National Convention, there was Pink and John Legend, the Chicks, Stevie Wonder, Eva Longoria, Steve Kerr, Jason Isbell, Tony Goldwyn, Common, Patti LaBelle, Lil Jon, Sean Astin, Mindy Kaling, Spike Lee, Kenan Thompson, Kerry Washington, D.L. Hewley, Huey Louis-Dreyfus, Mark Hamill, and Oprah Winfrey. Not only did the DNC outperform the RNC in ratings every single night, but Kamala Harris's DNC acceptance speech had nearly 3 million more viewers than Trump's RNC acceptance speech. In terms of all the things Donald Trump cares about, all of which are admittedly pretty superficial: crowd size, celebrity, ratings. In terms of all that, the DNC destroyed the RNC. But the DNC also accomplished something more substantive and arguably a lot more important. Democrats reclaimed what it means to be a real American from the Republican Party.
Look, Kamala knows, like we do, that regardless of where you come from, what you look like, who you love, how you worship, or what's in your bank account, we all deserve the opportunity to build a decent life. All of our contributions deserve to be accepted and valued. because no one has a monopoly on what it means to be an American. No one.
Looking around, you saw the traditional signposts of patriotism, and you saw them everywhere. Cowboy hats and camo hats and the American flag just everywhere. A football team came on stage. There was a drum line. The Chicks sang the national anthem. There were stadium chants of USA, USA. And it was all coming from Democrats. Democrats made the pitch that patriotism is a democratic value, as in a value of the Democratic Party. And equally as important, Democrats reclaimed family values as democratic values. Remember that Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, had been trying to make family values into a wedge issue in the election. Vance claims the Democratic Party is led by childless cat ladies and that the left is a place where parents are demeaned and diminished. Factually speaking, Vance is wrong. And this week, Democrats proved that.
In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and the personal choices they make. And even if we wouldn't make those same choices for ourselves, we've got a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
Even though they were just 1 month apart, the Republican National Convention and Democratic National Convention were held in political contexts worlds apart, it seemed. The result, two starkly different, this seems to be the word of the election, vibes that were
coherent policy and an optimistic worldview to all those different groups. And with Trump being Trump and dashing the hopes of every campaign insider who promised reporters he would pivot to being a unifier.
Our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward.
The prosecutor and the fake documents case against me were totally unconstitutional. They should drop these partisan witch hunts, which I have been going through for approximately 8 years.
You can always trust me to put country above party and self, to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections, to the peaceful transfer of power.
I am trying to buy your vote. I'll be honest about that.
In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man.
Has anyone seen Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He'd love to have you for dinner.
But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious.
Well, we had this and we had that. I mean, I couldn't imagine a more different, what they said, vibe between the Republican National Convention that was held last month and the Democratic National Convention that was held this week. And with it, I mean, it was like a month apart. I don't even know where to start. I'm going to let you just fill in what you have to say about the differences, some of the differences that we can talk about as far as how each party sees our country and sees the world.
Talking about me?
Yes, you.
Okay.
I'm talking about you.
I thought you were going to bring somebody else in. Well, I tell you what, when you talk about the differences, I mean, it was stark. The differences were stark. It was almost like you look at one, like the Republican convention, and it's almost like has a dark veil over it, you know, and not a lot of enthusiasm or how would you say hope then you look at the Democratic convention, and you see no veil. I mean, they look lively. They look like happy. They look hopeful,
joyful,
and they. One thing that came across to me very clearly, and it became a slogan for them, but they're looking forward.
Yes.
They're not looking backwards. And I always try to understand, how do you move forward when all you're doing is looking backwards? I don't see how you do that.
It's like trying to drive, looking in the rear view mirror. You getting ready to crash.
Right. And I like we always say, you vote for whoever you want to vote for. But if we're just looking at what we're seeing and comparing, then to me it's clear. Okay. And hopefully it's clear to you. But I do thank Marvel for bringing that up to you and showing the contrast between the two. Excuse me, because everybody can't watch those conventions all the time, and they'll miss a lot of things. And so she brought to you some of the most poignant things, and not able to bring everything.
No,
I mean,
there
if you
was
look
so
at
much
Hakeem
more.
Jeffries'
Oh yes,
talk there, you find a lot, and there were a lot more speakers and all that who were looking positively with hope and looking forward. So, Marvel, that was great.
Well, thank you. Sister Michelle said, wow, that was different as day and night. It really was. It was as different as light and darkness. It was as different as hate and hope. It was just as different as backwards and forwards. And I watched both. I couldn't watch the whole thing. I mean, goodness gracious, it's 4 or 5 nights of 3 hours of programming both sides. But I think that we did have an opportunity to really show the vibe, the attitude, the focus on both the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention. So please, share this with your friends. One of the speakers said, we have an assignment now, and our assignment is to go out and tell people about that difference. And then once they know the difference, they can make their own minds up. They can make their own minds up. Do they want to go forward? Do they want to go backward? Do they want to go for light? Do they want to go for darkness? Do they want to go for hope? Do they want to go for hate? It's a simple decision, but each person has the right to make it. And I'm not here to tell you how to vote. And I'm not even going to tell you how I'm going to vote. That's up to you. Anything else, honey?
Yeah, there is something I do want to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
We look at the candidates. I mean, the stark difference between Trump and Kamala and J.D. Vance.
You got it right.
J.D. Vance versus Walz. And the thing that gets me, and I've said it before, is that I really have a lot of disdain against someone who lies to my face and expects me to believe the lie, knowing I don't believe the lie, and then still expecting me to support him. That is never going to happen. Now, the other thing is, just look at the like Walz, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that man's coming from his heart. I don't care if you like him or you don't like him or whatever.
He's for real.
Coming from his heart. And the thing that differentiates is he has a son. And you could tell his son loved his daddy while his daddy was up there on the stage talking, crying and everything.
Yeah.
And I told Marv, I said, that boy looks like he might be on the spectrum, the autism spectrum. And but clearly loves his dad. And it came out, yes he is, okay? Which, so what? I mean, this man loves his son loves him. This boy has a disability of some kind or whatever, but he's right up there and he's supporting his dad. And the comments from the other side was to down Walz because of his son who's on the spectrum. Now, to me, come on now.
That's low.
Right.
That's low.
What is it? I mean, come on. That's crazy. It's crazy to do because once again, they're They're doing something to your face, knowing you don't like it, but wanting you to like it anyway. Crazy. Crazy. All right.
Sister Michelle said yes, and God looks at what's done from the heart. From the heart. Now, I want to, you brought up something, talking about the difference between the two candidates. I just want to, people have said, is America ready to vote for a black woman? My question is America ready to vote for an adjudicated rapist and convicted felon? Again, we got one choice and we got another choice. And everybody can make up their own minds. But when she was talking about the family values, oh my Lord, you could really see it. Kamala's whole family, her sister, her brother-in-law, all her nieces and great nieces, and her stepchildren, and just the whole family. And same with Walz's family. On the other hand, we didn't see much of any other family from the other candidates.
All right.
Okay, so I'm done, y'all. Tell it to conventions. There we go.
That's your Gap News for this week.